Hey, Corona TV viewers, this is Peter Keys from Leonard Skinner. I want to wish you all a happy birthday.
First of all, let's just do the elbow bump because we can't do the handshake right now.
Hello, everybody on Corona TV. This is Macy Gray.
You're smiling, and I saw your beautiful daughter earlier, who I said could come on the show anytime. Welcome, Shiv Singh.
Thanks for having me, Joseph. Great to be with you.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Corona TV on a Monday. I hope you guys didn't fall off your chair. Too much passion, too much energy, too much ambition, too much intensity. How can you have too much of anything like that when you have Mike Lipkin on the show? He oozes passion and energy and motivation, and I'm so excited to be hanging out with him. I'm also completely ripping off John Oliver. I'm on his set. He loaned me his set. Again, there's no one there. There's no one there from his show. I thought there'd be someone to greet me, but I have the run of set at the moment. I even got to do the welcome. He doesn't need it at the moment. He's not using it at the moment, so it may as well be me. But I am so excited to be doing the show today. There's so much to tell you about, so many amazing things. There's some plugs. I'm going to give you a plug. This is a plug for a previous guest, for Dr. Dean Allen. His amazing talk on comparing the Spanish flu to COVID-19. He's doing it again tomorrow, May 12th at 6 p.m. South African Standard Time, in aid of the Yes Education Trust. And if you want tickets, obviously virtual tickets, you just have to email Jill, JILL.STORR, storer@gmail.com, and you won't want to miss it. I'm telling you, it's been really fantastic. I'll try and put it up again at the end of the show. Yesterday was amazing. Yesterday, I had on Darren Levy, who is the CEO of Vida, which is a coffee chain in South Africa, talking about his response to COVID-19, closing down, reopening. And then I had Frank Peruna, who is the musical director of School of Rock in Fairfield, and he performed two songs. It was amazing for me. I mean, I'm geeking out seeing someone on my show, on our show, because this is our show, right? We're all a part of this. And seeing a song performed from his attic to my office, it was just amazing. And really, you should go back and look at yesterday's show. Maybe I'll even find a little clip and share it with you. So there's a lot of stuff to talk about. I do want to send one more little shout out to Esme Jacobson. She is not feeling so great at the moment. COVID-19 may or may not have affected her. She's watching the show, and I just want to let you know that I'm thinking of you, and I hope that you have a full and speedy recovery. This is the manic aspect of the show for those of you that are new to it, which is the highs are super high, the lows are unbearably low, and we have to create this smorgasbord. We have to kind of put them together and just recognize that this is our life right now. We try and smile, we try and face adversity. Sometimes it's just too much for us, but we just try and make sense of it all. And you know what? It doesn't matter if it doesn't make sense. It's our reality, and it's our coping mechanism, and that's okay too. Now, tomorrow, I am going to do a little bit of an experiment, which is, if my wife agrees to it, and she kind of doesn't want to, but maybe she will, she's going to cut my hair live on Corona TV tomorrow. So it could go one of two ways. One is very well, and two is not so well. And of course, my fallback option is to end up looking like Mike Lipkin, and you'll see what I mean in just a brief moment. So, you can only go shorter, you can't go longer. So I hope she'll do that. I hope she will cut my hair live on Corona TV tomorrow. So there are a bunch of things that I do want to share with you, of course, as we always have done, and go through it really quickly, because you really won't want to miss this interview. Mike is just super dynamic. Well, first and foremost, I want to, as always, make the most of the day. It is National Eat What You Want Day. And I couldn't decide if I wanted to just focus on National Eat What You Want Day because it's also National Foam Rolling Day. I have a foam roller. I was going to bring it up as a prop, but I forgot to. So if anyone in my, in John Oliver's studio can find that blue foam roller, please bring it up so we can put it on the air and you guys can all celebrate these unbelievable moments. We need to celebrate the power of foam rolling, and we need to be able to eat whatever we want because it's the national day of doing that. So let's do it. So as I was mentioning earlier, we've got Mike Lipkin. He is a multiple author. He is a motivational speaker. He is a personal coach. He is an executive coach. And he's going to talk about a bunch of things. He's going to talk about disruption. He's going to talk about depression and mental health. And I have it on good authority that my foam roller is here. So, you know, this is the amazing thing that we get to do now. I get to talk and miraculously foam rollers appear. So anyway, if you've got a foam roller, enjoy that foam roller and enjoy your national day. This week is just a ridiculously super week. Mike today, Rashad, my mentor tomorrow, Joey Dumont, who you will see Joey every single day on our Zoom after show. He is an ever present, and it is my honor to interview him. He's just written a book. Graham Codrington, another motivational speaker, thought leader, futurist on Thursday, and then the one and only David Meerman Scott on Friday. Some very brief happy birthdays to some of the people out there. Faith Popcorn. Now, I don't know Faith personally. I've interacted with her briefly, but Faith was one of maybe the first futurists that I was aware of. And I remember the one trend that she coined was cocooning. I wonder what Mike Lipkin has to say about cocooning. I guess we're physically cocooning right now. We don't have a choice. And also Robert Brill, who I reconnected with after many years, and he's been great in terms of helping me and giving me some advice on, on my Logitech camera and how to get the most out of the camera. And then, of course, a whole bunch of LinkedIn birthdays. You know who you are. Hopefully you can see yourself. Too many names to mention, but just want to wish you guys happy birthday. And finally, it is Fat Blogging Day. Unfortunately, for the first week since I started quarantining, which is roughly March 18th, I was 200.7 pounds. Last week, 195.2, but I've put on half a pound over the last week. The thing about fat blogging or weight loss by community is there's nowhere to run and there's nowhere to hide. And as much as I would have liked to have just missed it, I am going to be diligent about making sure that every Sunday or every Monday, I share my weight with you. If that doesn't give me an incentive to work a little bit harder, to be a little bit more disciplined, then I don't know what does. And I think it is important for us to be able to share in these victories, motivate ourselves throughout our lives right now to do whatever we can and to make the most of the time we have. Health and wellness is not an optional extra. It is something that I know Mike and I are going to talk about, and this is my way of coping. So without further ado, it is time to bring on Mike. But before I do, I just want to say a few little hellos to some people that have been commenting. We've got Joey Dumont, hello, and Karen Anderson, a pool noodle. No, it is a foam roller. It is not National Pool Noodle Day. It is National Foam Roller Day. Hello to Sharon Chimes. Nice to see you. And Bob Farnham, wine weighs. Wine weighs? Wine weighs. I don't even know what that means. Wine does weigh something. I know it has calories. And then, for whatever reason, my wife has said, tease apple fritter cake, oops. Oh, wait a second. I think maybe, unless that was oops and she didn't mean to comment there, what she's trying to say is yesterday was Mother's Day. And it was on Mother's Day, my wife made unbelievable apple fritter cake, which apparently has become a bit of a global phenomenon, a bit of a viral phenomenon. So maybe you guys are aware of that everyone seems to be making apple fritter cake, but she made it yesterday and it tasted absolutely amazing. Yes, I did want to make sure that I wished everybody happy Mother's Day from yesterday. If you celebrated, and hopefully you did, it was amazing to be together. Yet again, we are making the most of this time, showing ourselves what we are capable of. And I'm going to bring Mike on right now, and then there's going to be something that I have to show it while Mike is on and see his reaction, because both of us, Mike, do you remember the day when we met? Do you remember we met through Nando's Chicken Land in South Africa? Welcome to the show, by the way.
Hey, just fabulous to be on, Joe. Good to see you. You look like this should be National Rabbi Day.
National Rabbi Day. I don't know if this is meant to be rabbinical, but it is my way of showing a very physical, manifestation of this quarantine. And I like it. I embrace it. It's not meant to be oppressive. It's meant to be like physically, the longer the beard, the longer I've been home. And I'm approaching it positively.
Right. Excellent. Well, I'm thrilled to be here, Joe.
So I don't know if it was you, but I'm going to say it was. Nando's developed what was called the characteristics of a Nandokas. If you worked for Nando's, then you were a Nandokas.
That's
and
right.
If memory serves, you helped create the beliefs of a Nandokas. Am I right?
100%. And in fact, it's interesting that you mentioned that, because Nando's has got a significant presence in the US, and here I am in Toronto, and they've got a number of outlets here in Toronto. And we, in fact, ordered one in the other day. And I was just thinking about being an Nandokas, because an Nandokas is like the Portuguese term for a mensch. And I know you've got a lot of people watching the show who knows what a mensch is. And mensch is really someone who's got great values, who can be counted on to come through in a crunch, and who is really someone who is there for you, who's going to do what's right for you, and frankly, is someone who just makes you feel good all round. So, I think the more we go through the time of COVID, the more we need Nandokases and mensches.
So I tell you, this was the almost the positioning, in a way, the North Star for Nando's. Nando's is not about chicken. It's never been just about chicken. It's about passion, pride, courage, integrity, and most of all, family. I didn't even think what I was saying. It is still a part of me so many years later, those powerful words.
Let me ask you a question, Joe. How many people watching the show know about Nando's? If you want to maybe just make a couple comments around Nando's, seeing as we're doing what we can for that global franchise.
Yeah, and there are two parts to it. One is people that have been watching the show and know me, know a little bit more about Nando's and my past. But Nando's was, I guess, a fast food chicken company. Although, as you remember, Nando's would say, we're not good fast food, we're good food fast. And I worked for this very dynamic marketing company, because at the end of the day, that's what they were. It was just like Coke is a marketing company. Nando's was really powered by marketing.
Right. And the thing that I loved about Nando's was just the sheer irreverence for everything. And one of my favorite lines is during the elections in South Africa, they say, it's not about the right wing, it's not about the left wing, it's about the chicken wings, right?
Right.
And so I think, in the age of COVID, Joe, if there's anything that I'm discovering now, it's, our common humanity and the discarding of things that are trivial, and the discarding of things that really make us anxious or annoyed for nothing. I mean, we are really now confronted with existential issues. And in a curious kind of way, I'm feeling liberated, because there were a whole lot of things that really bugged me pre-COVID that are not even on my radar anymore. In fact, every day I wake up and and in my mind's eye, I'm testing negative, and then I'm happy. And when I say testing negative, I don't mean IQ, I mean COVID. So I think if you haven't got COVID and you live to see another day, and maybe observe another webcast and make a contribution to one other person, it's been a good day.
Yeah, and it's one of the things that you actually speak about. I think you talk under healthy gratitude. It was one of the points that you made in this latest video of yours, that we need to celebrate those moments. And who would have thought or thunk that testing negative would be a cause for a virtual cocktail or a celebration, but we do need to savor that victory.
No, that's right. And so look, I think one of the great outcomes of what we're going through right now is the celebration of everyday heroes. I mean, prior to COVID, Joe, I can't say that I paid much attention to a cashier in a supermarket, or to the guy who collects my garbage every day, or to, you know, the individual driving the streetcar. Now they are our frontline heroes, and I'm genuinely looking at them and I'm appreciating them, and they're looking at me and they're appreciating me. So, you know, there's a weird kind of paradox out there in the moment, because on the one hand, we've got to keep our social distancing. And if you come closer than 6 feet, then you could be life-threatening. You could be a murderer. I mean, all it takes, Joe, is a cough, you know, and you could kill me. On the other hand, I appreciate you like I've never appreciated anyone before. And Joe, one of the things that I'm really desperate to do is make physical contact with someone other than my wife and daughter. And I'm not talking about being a philanderer here. I'm talking about just being able to just embrace someone, because I think we're all social beings. And so, you know, previously, when I used to greet a man or a woman, I would do the hug, I would do the double kiss, I would definitely do the handshake. And now I can't do any of those things. So one of the things that I talk about doing, and hopefully we both doing it now, is I say, if you cannot hug and kiss and embrace literally, then you need to do it figuratively. So whether you're an introvert or whether you're an extrovert, make sure when you see people, you hugging and kissing and embracing and really demonstrating your appreciation of them through your voice, through your face, through your whole demeanor, because I think taking anything for granted is so pre-COVID. And now it's about being really grateful and demonstrating what you're willing to do to keep on deepening that gratitude and deepening your contribution. Just like you're doing now, because I see you do this every day. I think about the amount of work that you're putting into this, Joe. I mean, you've got to be doing this for the love, because it's got to be tough to monetize this.
Yeah, I mean, it's been, I'm playing around with my green screen, as you can see. I'm having what's known as a wardrobe malfunction. But you know what? Part of this as well is, you know what, it plays into what you said so beautifully, Mike. And I want to answer your question. I want to make a note of it. You spoke about this idea of authentic humanity. You know, slick and perfect don't work. Zero defect is for machines, not human beings. And this is exactly what you're talking about, that it doesn't have to be perfect. We're making it up as we go along. We're trying to cope. We're trying to survive. Yeah. And it is that little bit that, what was that quote you used? The crack is how the light gets in. Yeah, have the courage to be vulnerable. I wrote all these notes down. So now I was thinking, instead of trying to subtly try and fix the green screen, you know, I can do anything, right? So maybe I should play around with it and say, should I go with that? Or should I go with that? Or should I be an apparition in a sense? Or
Joe, in the spirit of authentic humanity, should you just be authentic, and whatever background you have behind you, that is your real life background, have that background. So I think any way works here. And, you know, it's interesting, the kind of subject matter that people most want to hear about now, and it has to do with mind, heart, body, and soul. So just like you, Joe, right now, I am making a living communicating with people virtually. And just like the hospitality industry, my life, ended as I knew it on March 13, which was, kind of lockdown day. And now I'm having to communicate with folks like this. But what they don't want to hear is more statistics and more facts and more evidence of how the world's going to hell in a handbasket. What they want to hear about is those things that animate their spirit, those things that give them what I call tough-minded optimism. So not the kind of optimism that is hallucinatory, but the kind of optimism that you can believe in and can sustain you moving forward. And so, this whole concept of authentic humanity means that people are social beings, and they want to be reminded that there are other people out there with beating hearts who care about them and who, Joe, are struggling and fumbling and stumbling forward every single day. So, what's very interesting for me is that prior to COVID, I would hire a really skilled video team. And once a month, we'd go into my office that has a backdrop of downtown Toronto, and I would spend a couple $1,000s, and we'd do these slick videos with these slick titles and these slick visuals that we used to slip in. And we even had this rousing background music. And now people are not relating to that anymore. They want what is real, and they are willing to forgive you for the fumble or the stumble forward, because I think, as you mentioned earlier on, or maybe it's one of the many conversations I've had today, there's no playbook for what we're going through. And so in a way, Joe, and this is what excites me, as I complete my my 5th decade on this planet, no, my 6th decade on this planet, is that we're all beginners. We're all rookies here. We're all having to start all over again. Now, you're an immigrant into the US. I'm an immigrant here into Canada. I came to Canada 20 years ago. I had to start from zero. And I just feel, Joe, like I'm starting from zero all over again. And nobody can tell me that what I'm doing isn't right, because no one's been to where we're all going. So part of this message, and this is why I'm talking the way I am, is whoever radiates the most confidence and the most conviction and who demonstrates the most courage wins. Does that make sense, Joe?
It certainly does. And you know what? I was thinking so many thoughts into my little pea brain. One, I was thinking, welcome to the Mike Lipkin show, because you know what? You don't need me. I'm going to go and eat some of those apple fritters. And I believe that people need to hear you and need to hear you more often. And so this is a little segue for me to say, this is, in fact, Mike's latest video. And as you can see, he's pretty much in the same room he might be in right now. And it's called, Are You Ready for What Comes Next? And there you go. And I just brought you back.
But you see, Joe, I think what you're engaging in here is what I would brand as disingenuous modesty, because your skill is you tee up your guests and you make them look, so good. You've got this cryptic smile on your face, which says, I'm really appreciating it, but I also know that this is Lipkin being Lipkin, and you appreciate it. And the way you framed the conversation means you've endeared yourself, you've endeared me to your millions of viewers. And so I can only be like this because you are being the way you be. And I have a phrase for it, Joe. I call it the potentiator. Now, I'll share something with you. Like many hundreds of thousands of other entrepreneurs, I had a lot of plans blown up by the advent of this damn virus, because I was about to publish a book called The Potentiator, and then the virus hit. And what I realized was, while a lot of the book is relevant, a lot of the book isn't. But one of the parts of this book that I was about to publish that is relevant, Joe, is what I call what it means to be a potentiator. Now, a potentiator is someone who expands the power and the capacity of the people around him or her. So when someone like you is in the room with me today, virtually speaking, just being in your virtual presence, Joe, liberates me to play a higher level game. Whereas there are other people that when I'm in the room with them, I play a lower level game, because I'm scared of how they're going to be critical. I'm scared they're going to be judgmental. I'm scared they're not going to ask me the questions that are going to enable me to be at my best. And so with those people, I'm actually bringing, the dwarf Mike out to play. But with somebody like you, because of your skills and just your overall sense of magnanimity, you're liberating me to just be my crazy, genuine, over the top, don't give a damn, let's just motivate the planet kind of self. But I couldn't do this without your benign face looking back at me, just so you know.
Wait, did you just call me disingenuous?
No, benign.
No, I'm kidding. And you know what's funny? I'm sure you've heard this phrase before. I don't know who coined it. Maybe I did. I'm going to take credit for it. Asynchronous intimacy. That really what happened in the...
Joe, I want to write that down. Just spell it for me.
I can't spell. Asynchronous intimacy. But I remember writing about this idea.
That's good. Don't. So my coaching to you now, Joe, is when you throw out something that has that level of potential impact, don't treat it as a throwaway line. That could change the way we think as we know it.
I'm thinking of muting you at this point. But I just want to say, people out there, all I'm seeing are laughing faces on Facebook. But Steve Morris says, yes, yes, yes. And Cecilia Lang, I'm going to start to break out into our little anthem song that we always sing together. She's always breaking my heart. She said she's really enjoying listening to you. What an inspiration, and thank you for hosting. And Heidi Furman, all the way from Cape Town, is enjoying it as well. So the idea of asynchronous intimacy is that, and this was during the good old days with social media. This is what happened when we felt like we knew someone, when we actually got to connect with them, even though we weren't physically with them, or even that we knew them, but we felt like we knew them. And so the idea of asynchronous intimacy is essentially this ability to develop a relationship with someone virtually. And now, in many respects, we've witnessed the dark side of social media. For all the wrong reasons, social media has now become the villain. But in many respects, what I love about this conversation is there's no synchronous or asynchronous, there's just intimacy. And we haven't spoken or haven't connected in decades. And here we are as if it was just yesterday. And maybe even better than when we actually did know each other or meet each other.
Well, you know, for the people watching this, Joe, I met Joe, it was in the, I think it was the late 80s or the early 90s, actually. And Joe was one of the early members of the great Nando's family. And in those days, Joe was just this incredibly eager young marketing intern who would do anything at any time of day. If you wanted it done, you would call Joe and he would just do it. He was just like pure earnestness. And to see Joe evolve into this erudite, wise mensch is just a treat for me. And, you know, to your point, Joe, I think the last time we saw each other, it would have been 91, 92. So, you know, what is that? Almost 30 years ago. I mean, time flies, whether you're having fun or not, right?
You make me want to be a better streamer. That's all I can say.
A better streamer.
No, definitely not that. I'm going to really mute you in a second. But you know, Mike, you asked a question a while back about monetization, and I haven't even thought about that, because that's just not the point of what this is. For me, every single day, I want to look at this at Corona TV and say, I did something new today. I did something that I hadn't done before. Every day, I want to be able to do that. And today, it's obvious to me that you need to come back. And today is the first day I'm thinking, who said that I can't have a guest coming back? Nobody.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So that's one. And Joe, the thing that I would challenge you on, and, you know, just tell me to go in another direction if this offends you, but I think you can do exactly what you're doing. And because this is so good, you want to find a way of monetizing it. So I'll tell you this, for me, normalcy means being able to sustain some kind of revenue stream. So like many people, 2019 was a really good year for me. And January, February, and even March were great months. And then, like many other people, April and May have been tough. But I want to do the best I can. I want to make a difference. I want to live each day as though it's my first and as though it's my last. And I would like to find a way of making some great money while I'm doing all of this and while I'm helping other people do this. Because there's a limit to how much altruistic activity one can engage in when one has a lifestyle to maintain. And so, you know, I think part of the challenge, Joe, and part of the thrill is to say people appreciate this so much that they're willing to part with some of their hard-earned dollars to keep on getting more of this. And so I don't buy into the argument that says this is a time where you shouldn't think about money, you should just think about doing good. I think this is a time that is not an acute episode in human history. I think this is part of a chronic new reality. and we're going to be going through rolling corona outbreaks, and we've just been through 1.0. So Joe, this is one of those moments where we say, okay, how do I figure this out? But there's got to be a way to make this economically viable as we go about being, adventurers and explorers and learners and students and teachers at the same time. So, Joe, look, if nothing else, maybe after this call, we can figure out a way to partner and bring this into organizations, bring this into various institutions, bring this into people's lives, where we say, look, there's a cost to putting this on, and whatever fee we're going to apply really is just tiny in comparison to the benefit that you're going to be taking away.
Well, I'll tell you, I've thought about it a lot, but I think the point is, I remember reading this book very, very early into my career, whether it was in South Africa or even at college at the University of Cape Town. It's called Love What You Do and the Rest Will Follow. And I can tell you two things are true. One, I've never worked as hard in my life as I am right now, certainly from a content creation standpoint. And two is I'm happy. And that's important. And part of the message, I know that you and I send similar messages in the sense, which is now is a time to take stock. If you were miserable before, why would you be miserable again? And so I do want to say, this is one call to action that you guys do not want to miss. If you want to win some time, if you want to spend 15 minutes with Mike, even on our after show, as soon as we're done here, come on over to bit.ly/CoronaTV after show, and Mike will be hanging out with us in the Zoom room, and he's very kindly offered to donate 15 minutes, a virtual consult between. Maybe I'll Zoom bomb you as well. But I just wanted to mention that, and also a whole bunch of comments. I just wanted to share those with you before we continue. Roland Gargami said, put more of your books on audio, and a little shout out to my brother, a little bit of nepotism. He'd be mad at me if I didn't. And then Roland said, as you can see now, you can see what Roland looks like. He said, bald guys never look older. You look the same as you did 20 years ago. So I'm assuming you know who Roland is.
Yeah, well, Roland, hi again. And again, Roland has probably been, the longest time. And Joe, what I'll tell you is that about 30 years ago, when I went through my wrestling match with depression, I made a decision when I emerged from it that I would never, ever age. So I don't mean I'm not going to die, but I'm going to die young at the age of 100. That's my goal. And so I've made a deal with multiple devils to retain my youthfulness and really grow old disgracefully, but have fun and energize others along the way. And hopefully get invited to enough parties that I can share my secrets of eternal youth with a whole lot of other like-minded folks. Yeah, sorry, Joe.
I was gonna say, as soon as I shave, I don't know what the hell is happening here. Maybe I need to be bald. Maybe that's what we need to do tomorrow. Maybe I need to be bald. But I've got a feeling I'm not going to look nearly as good looking as you. That's for damn sure.
Well, Joe, I'm not sure whether you'll be good looking or not, but I think it's a very different kind of look. Like, I'm into the kind of bald Vin Diesel, Bruce Willis look. I think your look is a little more cerebral. I think it's a little more highbrow, a little more intellectual, a little more of the guy that you want to kind of have a great conversation with, as opposed to a great, physical experience with.
Just say the name George Clooney, for God's sake. Just say it.
George Clooney. That's the name I was looking for. Exactly right. A Jewish George Clooney. George Goldberg.
George Goldberg. I feel like we need to be actually taking a moment now and saying and rest in peace and a little tribute to Jerry Stiller, who just passed away, Ben Stiller's father. And what a great recurring character on Seinfeld. Mike, you brought up something, and whatever we plan to talk about we're not exactly talking about it, because this is just a great conversation. Before we went on, I said to you, it's two old friends or young friends catching up and feeling like we really are sharing this with everyone watching. But there is something that I wanted to bring up, because you've written multiple books, and your latest is called Dancing with Disruption. We don't even need to talk about that today, because I feel like I'll definitely bring you back another time and we can talk about that. I want to talk about Lost and Found. For now, people that are getting to know you, this is probably one of the most defining, maybe not the most, but one of the most defining moments of your journey. And before you talk about your story, and maybe just that's kind of where we'll leave it afterwards, I found this on Amazon, and I just had to show this to you because I wasn't sure what was going on here. There is one entry on Amazon, or there are many, for your book, Lost and Found. And as you can see, it says January 1, 1741, and the cost of it is just under $1,000. And I was like, I got to ask him what the hell is going on with this listing. And then, of course, you can talk about maybe your journey, the book, etc. So I don't know whether you want to start from the sublime to the ridiculous.
Yeah. So, Joe, I can't even comment about, what Google says or doesn't say, or what Amazon says or doesn't say about that book, because that book was written, deep into analog times, right? And so over the years, it's taken on many different lives and made many different expressions. But that was a book that I wrote just after I came out of a 2-year wrestling match with clinical depression. And I mean, in a nutshell, until the age of 28, I could do no wrong. And then between the age of 28 and 30, I went through what some folks call the dark night of the soul. And then I emerged from it as rapidly as I went into it, and decided to write about it, because at that time, Joe, there was a number of people that were going through it. And one of them was a guy called William Styron. If you remember William Styron, he won the Nobel Prize for his book, Sophie's Choice. And he then went into clinical depression, and he wrote a small monograph on his experience, and he called it Darkness Visible. And I remember reading that when I was still going through it. And I remember that while it didn't lift me up, it gave me some insight into what I was going through. So when I came out of it, I wrote an article for a South African magazine called Style. Remember Style magazine? And it was a 5,000-word article, and the response was so extraordinary that I then expanded that into this book. And at the time, it was pretty revolutionary. Now, opening your emotional kimono is de rigueur, and a lot of us are doing it on social media. But at that time, it was really one of the first instances of someone being willing to let other people into their mind and walk them through the kind of hell that depression is. And so over the years, it's probably sold almost 100,000 copies and really been a significant part of my journey. And in fact, to this day, Joe, I will tell you that I'm a little bit like a recovering alcoholic, because here I am as a motivational speaker who is always on the edge of the abyss of despair. And so part of the reason why I talk like this, and with this degree of animation, this degree of intensity, this degree of craziness, is I'm being like this for my sake more than anybody else's sake. Because here's what I know. When you talk a certain way, when you think a certain way, when you act a certain way, that's how you will actually feel. So one of my mantras, and if your folks take nothing else from this call but this statement, then my work here will be done. It goes like this. It's easier to act your way into a way of thinking than think your way into a way of acting. So it's easier to act your way into a way of thinking than think your way into a way of acting. And why is that an important mantra for this environment? Because if you have a vision or you want to make any kind of difference, just go and do it. Don't worry about how to do it. Just do it, and you'll figure it out as you go along. The way to get ready is to do it before you're ready. If you're waiting for perfect in this environment, if you're waiting for the stars to align, then you're going to die in your home. And when you talk about faith popcorn and cocooning, I think the new metaphor is crypting. We really almost entombing ourselves in our homes. The difference between cocooning and entombing is cocooning, you actually have a choice, right? Entombing is when, there are cop cars driving around, they're the arrest you if you leave your home, especially if you're in South Africa and you can't even go out to buy, cigarettes or alcohol. If you were to tell me one of the great reasons why I'm happy to be here in Toronto, Canada, is that here the liquor stores are an essential service, because people understand that, without the aid of some kind of substance, you might not get through the night. But in South Africa, they think that that's going to animate your temptation to go out and do crazy things. So, the world is truly crazy right now, Joe. And I think in the midst of all this craziness, it's important to have a personal vision, a personal philosophy, and just go out there and say, look, there's so many ways that we are all useless, and there's so many ways that things are so futile, and there's so many reasons to be resigned to just this terror out there. And then on the other hand, there are ways we can make a difference. You are doing it one way, I'm doing it another way. And maybe the challenge to everyone watching this is to find your way of just making that deposit on what we want this world to become, or how we want to help people get there.
Yeah, I mean, all I was thinking, to go back to Jerry Seinfeld, the line, it's gold, Jerry, gold. That's what you just shared with us. It was gold, and it was beautiful. And, it's important to have someone like you on, and to have that energy, and to also understand where that energy comes from. And I didn't really know before. I didn't make that connection, that in a way you live on the edge. And you've embraced that edge too. But you also recognize that on any given day you could fall off the edge.
Yeah.
And it's important to be able to straddle and just keep moving forward. You spoke about this idea. I think it speaks to being on a tightrope. Whatever you do, don't stop. Don't look backwards. Don't hesitate. Just keep walking. That's the way to keep moving, and how to keep moving forward.
Yeah, and Joe, look, the thing is, so it's interesting you use the metaphor of a tightrope. I think in many of our minds, that is how it is, that if, one wrong move, one wrong glance, and you could fall off. My experience is that you get a first chance, then you get a second chance, then you get like a 50th chance, and you got to keep on taking those chances. And that, failure isn't fatal. And so failure, in fact, isn't failure, it's learning. And every time I do something like this, I'm trying out new thoughts on air with you, as it were, and I'm listening to you, and I'm responding to you in a certain way. I'm not second guessing myself. I'm not thinking to myself, oh my God, this is my one shot. And if I blow this interview, if I don't answer Joe the way he thinks I should, then he's going to judge me, and then I'll never get invited on the show anywhere.
Never again.
Never again. So I think in a way what COVID is doing is it's giving us license to experiment and to expand our repertoire, as it were, and try new things, because we can't fall off. COVID is out there, and as long as we aren't afflicted by COVID, we know that the rest is easy. I mean, if I just think about, how you and I have endeavored to reinvent ourselves over the last 8 weeks, prior to the last 8 weeks, I thought a lot of things were tough. But because of the last 8 weeks, I realized everything before the middle of March was easy. And I realized that if I've got through these 8 weeks, then I think not that it's going to become easier, but I'm going to be better equipped to deal with it. Now, the only thing I really need your assistance with, Joe, and that's why I spoke about monetization, is how can you help me with my cash flow?
How can you help me with my cash flow? But you know what? Someone reached out to me today, and they just said, "How can I help you?" And my response was twofold. One, thank you. First and foremost, thank you for just the sentiment, just for the intent. And the second is not to be so proud that I don't say, you know what? Let's discuss. Let's talk about a bunch of ways. And that's what happens. These are the changes that we need to recognize inside ourselves. We might have been too proud before, but not now. It's not about weakness. It's about connection. There was something you said, by the way, the cat is out the bag. I am monetizing this because I'm reinventing myself, and I love it. And I'm bathing in it right now because this is something that I wouldn't have done otherwise. There would have been 1,001 reasons, including but not limited to catching those planes and being delayed on the tarmac and eating those, getting those hot towels and watching Netflix on the plane instead of creating content. But I wanted to say one thing, which is two things actually. You know, Steve said this. He said, "Thanks, Joe, for summing it up like that." That's what I do. I frame and reframe and connect the dots. And I want to just connect the dots with respect to what you said. I feel like we've fallen off the tightrope. We're on the ground right now. So instead of worrying about falling, what we need to do is think about picking ourselves up and climbing up again. And I think it's an important distinction. There can be no fear. We have to be fearless.
That's right. Well, Joe, here's the thing. So, you know, like the hospitality industry, you and I have had our industry shut down. So I will tell you, like you, Joe, I've been blessed, but also lucky and skilled, and I've worked hard. But every year I've given about 100 talks at between $10,000 and $15,000 a talk, amongst other revenue. So it's been a fantastic run of prosperity. And then as of the middle of March, it's now illegal for me to get into a room with other live breathing humans who could transmit the virus. And so I feel as though the business has been blown up. I feel as though I have screwed up so monumentally that I can never, ever do what I did before ever again. So this is really beginning again. This is really reinventing, but not even knowing what I'm reinventing. This is like, okay, let's go and build this business and move towards a destination. We don't quite know what the destination is. We don't know what the path is, but we're doing it together. We'll find a way or make a way. And every comment, every insight that is well-meaning, whether it's a affirmation or whether it's constructive criticism, is, as you've indicated, it's gold. And so right now, I think those folks who've got a great appetite for shape-shifting, those folks who believe that, as we say in our tribe, Modeh ani lefanecha, my best days are ahead of me. And trust me, Joe, I'm not a religious man. I am becoming more religious the more this COVID continues. But I really believe my best days are ahead of me. And I love the idea that every day is our life in miniature. And I think whatever the opposite of Groundhog Day is, that's what we're going through. And it's a bit schizophrenic because on the one hand, you know, none of us are leaving our homes. I don't think I've been more than 300 meters or, you know, for your American viewers, 300 yards from my house in the last 8 weeks. But on the other hand, I feel like I've done so much every day, had so many conversations, been to so many places virtually that I've lived a lifetime every 24 hours. And, you know, that is thrilling. And there's this adrenaline rush that comes with doing all of that, that mitigates the flow of whatever negative emotions are when you realize that you've done so much and yet you haven't really moved, right? So I think you've got to find meaning in what you're doing, irrespective of what the external measurable results are, because at some point, and this is the thought that keeps me going, Joe, and this is what a potentiator does. At some point, you and I are going to have the breakthrough, and then we'll slingshot forward. That's what I do.
You have reframed my reframe of your reframe of my reframe of your frame, and what exactly? It's like jazz. It's like jazz. It's just scatting as well. We appreciate you guys watching as well. I know my mother-in-law and father-in-law are watching in Israel. My sister-in-law in Temple Fortune in the UK. It's just been fantastic to have everybody also participating through the comments. But we're going to leave it right here. Mike and I are going to go over to the Zoom room. Come and hang out with us for 15, 20, 25 minutes. Mike, I would be honored if you would come back at some point, and I'll help you with that monetization. I've got a couple of ideas. It does involve wearing dresses and performing interpretive dance. And then there are some more riskier ones than that. So we'll talk.
Thank you for that. Listen, it's been a pleasure. It's always an incredible measure of success when time flies as quickly as it has for me. But Joe, just a pragmatic question. How do I get into the Zoom room? Do I stay where I am and you'll take me in, or I've got to go out and click on the link?
I am going to come and give you a virtual hug and pick you up, or you just have to go to, what a beautiful little segue, go to bit.ly in your browser /CoronaTV after show, or if you're Mike Lipkin, wait 10 seconds for me and I will escort you into the Zoom room myself. On behalf of myself and Mike, everyone, take care. Tomorrow I will be back with Rashad Tabakawala. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.